Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is a game that's been breaking records left and right. The game takes us to 1991 when the Soviet Union fell and the world was a pretty scary place. Black Ops is famous for its crazy conspiracy theories, and this game is no different. In fact, it's got a big one that'll make you wonder, could this really happen? We're here to answer one big question. Is Black Ops 6 historically accurate or just a fake wild ride? Welcome to History Unfolded. First up, let's talk about why Black Ops 6 is such a big deal. When it dropped in October 25th, 2024, it broke records. Microsoft said it had the most players on day one, the most hours played, and the most matches in its first 3 days. That's more than any other Call of Duty ever. It even sold 60% more copies on PlayStation and Steam than last year's Modern Warfare 3. Also, it was the first COD to launch on Xbox Game Pass, bringing in tons of new players. So yeah, it was a massive hit. Now, the game is set in 1991, right after the Cold War ended. This was a crazy, scary time. The Soviet Union was falling apart, and the US was becoming the world's only superpower. There's a real sense of fear and uncertainty in the air, and Black Ops 6 nails the feeling of the time. You play as a rogue CIA agent like Troy Marshall or Frank Woods, trying to stop a shadowy group called Pantheon. And I can tell you now, this conspiracy gets wild. So what is the big conspiracy in Black Ops 6? Well, Pantheon is a secret group that used to work for the CIA, but went rogue. Their plan? They want to attack the US and make it look like a Middle Eastern country did it. A fake attack to trick everyone. Sound familiar yet? They even have a creepy bioweapon called Cradle that they plan to use on the US Capitol. But here's the thing, is this realistic to our history? Well, actually, kinda, but not really. The idea of a fake attack isn't something new. Some people think the CIA has done shady stuff like this before, like in the 1980s with something called Iran-Contra, where they secretly sold weapons to Iran even though it was banned. And honestly, the main plot feels a bit like those 9/11 theories, saying that the government was behind it. Of course, apparently there's no proof, but whether anything like Pantheon ever existed in the 1990s, I guess we'll never know, right? For Black Ops, it's more of a what-if story than real history. So, what about that bioweapon, Cradle? Back then, people were crazy scared of chemical weapons. The US and Soviets both tested stuff like that during the Cold War. The US had a secret program called Project 112, where they tested germs on people without telling them. Super shady. But Cradle, it's totally made up. No weapon like that existed in 1991 that we know of. But let's get to the good stuff. What does Black Ops 6 get right about history? Well, the setting is pretty legit. The Soviet Union really did fall apart in 1991, and there was a big coup against their leader Gorbachev that year. The game mentions that, and that feels very real. They also show the Gulf War, which happened in 1991 when the US fought Iraq. You'll do missions in places like Baghdad, and the tanks, guns, and war vibe feels exactly like it happened. The game even has real people like Vladimir Putin and Bill Clinton, who was running for president in 1991, and Saddam Hussein, who was Iraq's leader. That part is true. The fear of spies and secret groups, that was a big deal back then as well. People did not trust the government, especially after the Cold War, and the CIA had a bad rep for doing really bad stuff. So the game nails that uneasy feeling of the 90s. But here's where Black Ops 6 goes off the rails. Pantheon and Cradle, totally fake. There's no record of a rogue CIA group like that in the 90s, and the bioweapon is pure sci-fi. The game also has some tech that's way too advanced for 1991, like a spy cam that lets you see enemies through walls. That's more like something from today, not back then. There's also a mission where you fight zombies and weird monsters. Of course, that's not real at all. It's supposed to be a hallucination from Cradle, but it's a big stretch. The Black Ops series loves adding mind control stuff, like in the first game with those numbers in Mason's head, but zombies in 1991? Nope, that's just for fun. So, is Black Ops 6 historically accurate? We'd say it's about 60% vibe, 40% fact. It gets the 90s feeling right, and the fear, the war, the spy stuff, the Gulf War missions, and the Soviet Union's collapse, they're all based on real history, and that's really awesome. But the big conspiracy with Pantheon and Cradle, that's all made up. And zombie stuff, well, that's just Black Ops being Black Ops, right? Still, gotta say, the game does make you think, doesn't it? What if something like Pantheon did happen? It's an interesting way to look at history, even if it's not all that true. For a Call of Duty game, that's what makes it awesome. It's a wild ride with just enough real stuff to keep you hooked. What do you think? Does Black Ops 6 nail the 90s vibe, or is it too crazy for you? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear what you think. Feel free to hit that like and subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay curious.